for JDS International, which is a federal government contract that is the training and technical assistance contract for the Rural Community Opioid Response Program. So what does that mean? It means that anyone who has this grant, which represents the largest targeted investment in rural America, covering more than 50% of rural communities in the United States, has someone in my role who meets with them once a month at the same time as their project officer from the federal government. And so we're here very grateful to be welcoming the community and in the space at the meeting. I think you guys heard last time that this conversation is going to be about what is the future of the BHC. So this grant comes to its conclusion in August, and as public health indicated at the last meeting, they really support the continuation of this space, but don't see themselves as the place to house it. So there's a few conversations to have, and they're going to center around why. So what's the value that people have had or not of the BHC? What should it look like going forward? Should it look very similar, sort of more intensively staffed and supported, same frequency, those kinds of things? Should it look different? The next is where should it be housed? What makes the most sense there? And then the who is both who should be at the table. So are there organizations not represented who need to be here? Are there folks who haven't attended meetings who feel like this is one that they would need or want to step back from? The other piece of the who is if it is supported or staffed, how does that look, right? And that's going to be connected to the other conversations about what the intensity is and where it's housed. Finally, we're going to talk about next steps. So the hope is in these 90 minutes, we get a good sense of the value seen by y'all for this, and in what way, if at all, it serves this community to continue this group. Any questions about any of that framing? All right. And the way that we're going to start, we're basically going to structure the conversation. You'll see the flip chart paper. Aaron has very kindly offered to report some of what we're saying. So we are going to go with those basic questions of why, what, where, who. But before we do that, there's a couple of questions to sort of hear from each other. That's some faith. And we're going to go around in sort of less than 2 minutes each. How do you connect with the BHC? How are you today out of 5? We're always bringing ourselves in these spaces. Most folks work in some way connected to behavioral health. We deal with a lot of crises that we may or may not have predicted going into today. And then the two other questions are what has gone well during the life of the BHC and what could have gone better. All right. And so I'll stand sort of increasingly close to you if you're going more than 9 seconds. Gets on that way. You can just indicate for you on this side of the room if you want to project or if you'd like the microphone coming up. And we're going to start with Commissioner Brotherton. We're going to go around the ring and then online.
Can you restate the second question? Sorry, I couldn't.
Yeah, how are you doing today out of 5? 5, generally, we say you feel like you could take over the world. 1, you may be like an arson threat to this building. At present.
Okay. I can go. I always feel pretty good. I don't know.
Great.
4.5.
Great.
And I really value the BHCs. I think I've said before. I think it's pretty unique, and I take a lot of value from what I hear from the clinical director at the Salish BHASO too. It's a space worth preserving that I guess I take for granted because I don't have experience otherwise really. So I think that it is less or its effectiveness is not as a funding agency, but really as a place that we can come and talk to each other, share progress in this field, and avoid the siloing and redundancies that are so easy.
Yeah, and what could have gone? Maybe.
I just want to point out that Brandon Mack has his hand
up. Okay, Brandon, you have a question.
Oh, no, I just wanted to chime in earlier than later, so I don't want to interrupt Commissioner Brotherton's comments, but if possible, because I'm getting ready to go into a train, so I might lose service here.
Absolutely, we'll have you go next. And so during the life of the BHC, go
I'm
ahead.
so sorry. We're getting that it's muddled for those hearings, so I think you should just use
Yeah.
the microphone.
Yeah.
And you should use it every time somebody
Yeah.
is speaking.
Sounds great. What could have gone better during the life of the BHC?
I think some of the things that didn't go great, like maybe the CARES rollout, are the strength of the BHC and bringing those awkward conversations to the fore. So I think even when it doesn't go well, it's held a lot of value for this area.
Oh, great. And we'll go next to Judge Mack. Do you want to unmute yourself, Judge? And I know folks online can't see the questions, and maybe Lori, when she's back in her seat, can put them in the chat. So it's how do you connect to the BHC? How are you doing it out of 5? What's gone well? What could have gone better?
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody, and apologies on appearing remotely and from the sidewalk in Seattle here. I was hoping to catch an earlier ferry so I could be in the corner of an airport for this meeting, but I'm just on my way. And like I said, I might be going into a tunnel here, so if I disconnect, I'll rejoin. But anyway, I've only been the Superior Court judge for about 6 or 7 weeks here, so I can't necessarily speak a whole lot to, the last few years. I've been over in Clallam County as their family court commissioner, and there I was working with the family treatment therapeutic court, and now I'm here working with the drug court team, doing our therapeutic drug court, and really, it's rare that I get a case in Superior Court that doesn't have some element of behavioral health. So I have a lot of interest in the consortium and all the connections within the community that have happened. And I look forward to hopefully getting a chance to continue, as I'm moving forward. So I appreciate everybody and all the hard work they've been doing.
That's
about all I got.
Thanks. Good. Thanks for making the effort to be here. Apple. I'm gonna hold it. Hopefully make it easier. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Apple Martin. I'm the director at Jefferson County Public Health. And on a scale of 1 to 5, I've become a 3.5. I think I could use a little more lunch. I appreciate being here, and I'm glad that we've come to this era of sustainability in the year 3 of 3-year grant. I think the wide repertoire of things that have been really successful is probably enumerated by many of us here, and chief among them are that this has been a really generally gracefully run BHC. It's been inclusive, and it's been a really great distillation of project ideas and allocations of funding, and propping up things that really needed our support in the community to get going or to be sustained. I think that the sort of branding and also the draw of partners to come and really talk about things that are complex, and also to learn about how to better constrain and collect our data to share the story and show what it is that we're moving the needle on has been really, really valuable. And like Commissioner Brothers has said, I think this is a unique thing to behold in our county. I don't know what types of replication of a consortium like this there are in the state of Washington, but there are a few from what I gather from other perspectives along health jurisdiction guidelines or perspectives. So I think the weaknesses, I believe that the journey is pretty creative. I realize that the HRSA grant is pretty prescriptive in terms of how to navigate the years of the grant and do the things that we're doing. But it is pretty creative, and I think there's been at times some tensions and some maybe siloing where it wasn't intended. And I see that as room to grow. I mean, I see that as, bringing our professional integrity to the table and learning to further understand our ways of communicating and improving that, and being in service to our clients and also to each other in terms of filling the gaps in our community that we can help.
Thanks.
Good. As for how I'm today, I'm probably like 2. I don't know if I'm coming or going today. It's just one of those days where all the staff on top of appointments and then private life constantly gets in the way with teenagers and issues. So those are all challenges. As for the BHC, I think that for me, because I don't get directly in public health, per se, I don't really have an opinion on whether it's successful or not. I use it as an opportunity to gather information and apply it as I do fit, for my department, my officers, and everything we do. And so it continues to be that for me. It's a way to learn new things, connect with my stakeholders, get more information. You can always have more. It's ever changing and challenging something.
Anything that would have been more helpful that stands out?
You know, again, I don't know what right looks like for something like this, so it's hard to say. So probably 6 today.
Been having a good day, so I'm just happy to be alive. That's what we look at. I think the BHC is unique, and 28 years of my career spanning 3 different states. I've never seen anything similar to this, and to watch people come together. There's a lot of meetings we go to, and as I was just talking to one of my board members a few minutes ago, you go to another meeting, blah, 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 and that's what a lot of meetings like. But this is a meeting, this action takes place, and this is the group where action occurs. And I think that's important. We can talk about a lot of things, but what's the outcome of all that talk? And to actually see something develop out of this thing, like having that vending machine, ending up maybe being down in Brennan, and get it ordered. It's concreteness to it, and it brings different areas together, as being a community mental health center, and having to see this, it really helps us to focus where our work has to be and where we have to find those sweet spots in the community. And this is what we talk about that, but not just talk about it, figure out programs and where we can really shore up the spaces that are empty in the community that need assistance. So I think it's really gone well, and I think it has lots of room to grow. And it's something I really support. All the different meetings I go to, the one I never have a problem going to. I don't have that people push me out the door to go get a meeting to go to. I enjoy coming to this. And I enjoy, hearing from people, not so much what they're doing, but what they want. And I think that's a big difference. So what could have been better? I don't know, it's kind of interesting, maybe a little more focus on, really, sometimes we end up broadening out, we lose the focus of where we're at. And, it's a behavioral health consortium, so, keep it contained in there, because I watch other committees all of a sudden going out and funding things that maybe don't have a direct effect on behavioral health.
Yeah.
It's answered, but how do we keep that focus on where the goals are?
Good.
Oh, good. So the questions are up there. It's covered. How do you connect with consumers? Are you on 5? Or someone will do it all in nice.
One of the days almost over and I'm on vacation. So I'm gonna go with the 9. I defined this, most of this with the work, so I would say it's went well. The thing I like about what Brian brings back from this is the group work. Again, the work that gets done, walk away with a tangible. Not an idea, how we fix it, and then we so that's always nice. And funding came out of it, that we can bring down the funds.
Anything that could have gone better. And
I don't know, I'm not involved in that to really say.
no problem. Thank you very much. Right.
Hey, Ryan, I work at House of the Cafe under Beulah, so we're direct recipient of funding through the BHC. How am I doing? 5 out of 5, life is good. What has gone well in the life of BHC? It has brought in much darker news, frankly, that funds some new programs, more like stigma and harm reduction activities, prevention work, treatment and recovery in every aspect. It's been a platform, I think, for a lot of folks to engage with one another, and it's been tough because it was started at the beginning of the pandemic, through the pandemic, and now where we're at right now. I have appreciated some of the challenging conversations that we've been able to have there under Lori's leadership, where folks have been able to express some either, I don't know, miscommunication or tension that may have existed, and we're able to work through some of those things, which I thought was great. And then as far as what could have gone better, it's just that it's been a long period of time. And so beginning, we had a lot of different people sitting in these rooms deciding what are our shared priorities, what's the landscape look like, what are the problems, how do we address them collectively. A lot of new leadership, so I think that's just tough. And so I think if we can continuously go back to that beginning step would be great.
All right, so my name is Richard Davies. I'm a contender here in town. How do I connect with the BHC? Usually late, late as others. I think it's a remarkable stuff. We got all these people here in this room, all out of their particular silos. I work in the criminal legal system. We love to be siloed, and it's really helpful and healthy for all of us that are working with behavioral health to be in one room to talking about what to do and how to do it, as opposed to just trying what we've tried forever and ever. And in terms of where am I? I'm a 4. It's Thursday. Tomorrow's Friday night. I'm just really impressed with what has happened, and I hope that something like it continues.
I am Gabby. I'm the clinical director of Labor and Recovery. Today, on number 5, I am. Good question. It's Thursday. I'm in Milano. So it goes on. Chaos all over. I think I'm a lot of work though.
Okay.
Life's good. I'm fun. What has gone well during the life of BHC? I think it has brought some funding into our community, which has been good. I know it's funded a lot of what the Recovery Cafe does, which is awesome. It's been a program down there. I think all of us go to a lot of the same meetings together all the time. And I've already said this, but it's so seeing each other at the same meeting, doing different things, where we're all like really trying to do the same thing. I think has been good and bad. What could have gone better? I think a little more transparency about the funding and where that's going. Not waiting until the end of the grant cycle to get the funding out. Maybe I don't know how that works, but that's something that maybe we could have done earlier, not wait until the end of this. Other than that, that's good. There you go.
Hi, everybody. I'm Robin Pegmore. Most of you don't know me. I'm the shelter manager with Olympic Community Action Programs, and I'm here representing that because Sharon Miller and Kathy Morgan are very much, and I'm very excited to say, getting ready for the grand opening for the 7th Haven 43 affordable apartments next to QFC. And that's a big job. So they asked me to come here. So it kind of catches me off guard because I have not been a part of this. But I would say on behalf of all the cap, I'm probably close to a 5 because I'm excited about going to be able to finally bring people that have been unhoused, vulnerable, into a safe place they can call home. As far as what's going well, it's obvious you're all communicating. Communication is key for anything that we do. Having partnership and having service providers that I can go to with my job as a shelter manager for emergency shelters and what we're doing down at Mill Road is huge. I could not do it on my own, and I rely on all of you. So thank you for what you do with the BHC Consortium. And then what could have gone better? I think we can always improve. Anything in life, we can always improve. Thank you.
Hello, Joe Knoll, Jefferson County Sheriff, I should say the Jefferson County Sheriff. And I really think that the Behavioral Health Consortium is beneficial to all of us. And you know, you're hearing everybody say their stuff. I think Richard, or Brian, sorry, for reminding me of when we first started, that, get the priorities and all that stuff, but, so it's a good thing. How I'm doing today, I walked in here as a one. And after hearing everybody talk about how great the gift of local service, I'm gonna buy that. So, thank you all for that. And as far as, what's gone, well, I just, to me, I've been around, in law enforcement here for going on 33 years. And, not that I was always in a position of authority, if you want to say, but, we've all, in my experience, been kind of just out there stumbling along on our own. And maybe, especially in law enforcement, I think, book them and take them to jail. And someone else takes care of us. So what I really like about it is learning new ways that we can be involved as law enforcement. To be kind of untraditional and make things happen. I like the sharing the ideas, getting new ideas, getting feedback on things that we want to do, the brainstorming, the networking, and we're all here to serve the community. And like Gabby said, we all usually see each other, all these meetings throughout the month. But this, and they're all important. This one seems to me anyways, where I really feel like I can get information on how I can help with the deputies to make the community better. And what we could do better, I don't know. I agree that things could always be done better, but I don't really know how we could. Maybe if we had lots of grant money. So technical issues. Okay,
And prior to that, we were voting here, I was contacted with the behavioral health consortium doing overdose education and outreach. I'm gonna go with 5-2. I just had a great lunch at the Recovery Cafe with Brian and Aaron. What's gone well with the BHC is this relationship building. I think I've collaborated with almost every person in this room to do naloxone distribution and to do overdose education and stigma reduction. And without this space, I don't think we would have known each other or have that trust to collaborate on different events. What could have gone better? I think what Robin said, that there's always room for improvement. Now that we've built trust and awareness of each other's capacity and resources, I think that there's a lot that we can do moving forward if we get some more.
Hi, I'm Lori Tinker. I'm here representing the EMS Council, which is Managed Services Council. I serve this year. I have the privilege to serve as the president. I'm on the council representing Jefferson Healthcare Hospital. All my experience and professional life has been interior of the hospital in acute care, and so being a liaison of the hospital to the EMS Council opened up this incredible world of pre-hospital care and the fire world, and learning the new language and all the initials and abbreviations. And it's been really fun for me and introduced me to a tremendous amount of new people. One of the things then is to been able to serve and attend the BHC meetings and gather information. Been incredibly impressed with the representation and the tentacles to our community that this has, although I'm sure Lori feels like she's herding cats most of the time, because all of us are very strongly rooted in our organizations or our programs and what we want to accomplish with those. But it's this forum that we becomes much larger. We as a community, we as a group of people, what do we want to accomplish? So I would echo the benefit of hearing you go down. And we do right. We take the right, we do need to do that too. But I would like to, along lines of what could be, perhaps not better, but what could be, is returning to an agenda that looks at the finances of the grants and the monies, and also the benchmarking of are we doing what we said we were going to do, and what is the feedback? This is difficult to read it to say, oh, we help this many people, or you got that many things off the street, and this many people housed and whatever. But I think that there should be a drive for evaluation and benchmark people into the problem. And I personally, since my last text a couple of minutes ago, said my daughter was dilated and pushing. Scale. So I jumped up and leave, she's in San Francisco. Jump up and leave.
Hi, I'm Barb Jones, and I am new as of January at Jefferson County Public Health, as the Community Health Improvement Plan Program Manager, say that in business. Coming from the outside here and having the opportunity to observe the BHC for the last 3 months, is quite a testimonial of all of you coming around the multidisciplinary group that convenes here. And from that perspective alone, the value is clear, and the issues to tackle are still there and continuing. So I can't really look back and say what needs to improve, but I can look forward and see there's more work that this group could be of value in tackling. So, that's where I stand. Oh, and how am I doing? I drove back from Spokane, so I'm waiting a little bit. About the interview.
You want to do the second? You want to do the order?
Anyway, representative Steve for grants. I met a couple of you guys throughout the last days, so excited to see you all again and meet the new people that I haven't had a chance to talk to yet. On a scale of 1 to 5, I'm on 5. It's in Washington State. And yeah, thanks for having me, hosting me.
Last but not least, in person.
Brett Black, with East Jefferson Fire, and our role on the committee, we were one of signatories to the BHC, and we're proud to be a part of the collaborative effort. And just to echo what I heard from the public defender, is I think it's great anytime we can get outside our own silos, and fire definitely not a silo, that we get in a regular cadence, and sometimes it's not obvious what partners are doing at the same time, maybe the same effort. So I think that kind of pivots into what I would like to suggest for improvement would be to try to align efforts outside of our own agencies as best we can. And strengthen some of what Lori Picker said, with some quantified outcomes, and even a to-do list. If we don't finish everything we said we were going to do, it would be great to have the punch list, so to speak, if we stumble upon an goal. And how am I doing? Sorry, I'm building a house, so I have 2 full-time jobs.
Oh, thank you, Chief Manley. Let's do Dr. Carl Baum next.
Thank you, and I apologize I can't be in person. I'm teaching medical students this afternoon at 3:30. My name is David Carlbaum. I'm the EMS Medical Program Director. I supervise all the pre-hospital or out-of-hospital medical care that happens in the county. I also am an intensivist in that I care for patients at Harvey Medical Center where behavioral health has become a catastrophe in their life for whatever reason. I'm a 5 right now, I think. I don't know why I'm not. I got to bike commute 10 miles to the medical school. I'm about to teach some young, smarter than me humans. Always fun. And about the lung, which is like the best organ ever. So you can see our word work. Anyways, I digress. I think the BHC has provided a forum, and I think a lot of people have said this, and I think it's, around building relationships, and then the next layer of building trust, and the next layer of working collaboratively to solve problems. And I think the BHC has done a good job of that. I was not involved from the very beginning, in that I'm relatively new to my role, so just 2.5 years, maybe 3 years. And I'm not really a covenant member, I'm just a hanger on. But I will say that I've learned a ton, and so I'm exceedingly grateful to meet these other people in the community. I now have a network of people to problem solve with around behavioral health. We've accomplished a lot from my perspective in that we are talking, we're working collaboratively on projects. Some spin-off stuff has helped with EMS, and that we are one of the few counties in the state that has a behavioral health patient care protocol that is being upheld by the state as exemplary, that has a primary goal of providing safety for our providers and a secondary goal of providing safety for patients. When I think about what could go better, it's interesting. I don't know the right answer. I also wonder if maybe earlier on in the BHC we could have invested a little bit more grant money and expertise with data. I look at the big shining star of King County Public Health and their like fentanyl overdose website, which is amazing, right? It culls data from a bazillion different sources, everything from pre-hospital run reports to hospital data to coroner data, and I think data tells the story. And then I think maybe working collaboratively a little bit more to continue to improve our relationships. I think we're at the relationship level, and I think many times we're approaching complete trust with each other, but sometimes, right, that's like meditation, it's never perfect. And so sometimes that falls off, and I think when that falls off, then that's challenging because people it's harder to collaborate if you don't trust each other. So I don't know the right answer. I think the BHC should continue to exist in that it seems like everyone in this meeting garners value from it. And I think, although I don't have quite perfect data to show, I think the community has value, garners value from it. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Carl. We're going to see if we can get our last two folks in cumulatively 3 minutes here. So is it different Lisas or is it the same Lisa? All right, Lisa Ray Thomas first.
Hey, everybody. I'm also sorry I can't be there in person. Like Dr. Carlbaum, I think I'm a 5, maybe a 4.9 because I thought it was Friday, but it's actually Thursday. And I think I've been involved with the consortium since the very beginning. And I'm with the University of Washington Addictions, Drug and Alcohol Institute, and also with WSU in the Community and Behavioral Health Department. And so I have a unique perspective in that I attend coalitions and stakeholder groups around the state. And this particular one is so impressive with where you started and where you are now. In addition to everything that everybody else has said, just the importance of relationships and what happens outside of the hour-long meetings is super important. And what could have gone better, the things that I can think about are out of anybody's control. The two things, COVID. So when the consortium first started, they were in person, and Lori always made sure there was time built into the agenda for just networking. No agenda, just people standing around talking to each other. So with COVID, that became impossible. And then the turnover. So nothing you can do about those two things. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Other Lisa.
Hi, I'm Lisa Grundle, and I'm with Health Facilities Planning and Development. I'm not an official member of the consortium, but have been a consultant supporting mainly the data aspects of the consortium. And like the other Lisa, I've had an opportunity to work with lots of consortiums across the state. And I would say that as in terms of what went well, this consortium is one of the most engaged, has the greatest participation, greatest collaboration of any that I've seen. We've been at meetings where people come up with a concern, and by the end of the meeting, people are giving each other cards and figuring out a solution. And just from an outsider looking in, really exciting to watch. And specific to my role in data, we've had people very engaged and listening, hearing what we need in data, being willing to go back and gather data in different ways so that we can do some more comparisons. It's been very helpful. Yeah, I think it's been a great process. And like I said, one of the best I've seen in terms of engagement and trust and collaboration. What could go better? I think, again, with data, I would love to see more resources provided to consortium members so that they have the ability to do the training and gather the data. I mean, we're always asking for some pretty heavy lifts for data, and you know, the resources I think would be great if there could be somehow some resources to do training to the people that are gathering the data, and also just for people to be able to spend more time on data production, things like that. Because I agree with Dr. Kalbaum that it would be awesome if we can get to a place where the data is really strong and all one place, consistently defined, all those things that we've been working through throughout this process. But and I think I forgot to say I'm a 5 today because it's sunny in Seattle, so that's always a good day.
Thanks very much, Lisa. So thank you, everybody, for taking the time to do that. I know that some folks mentioned that the number that they were today went up here and sort of reflected back the value of this. I think some of the challenges were also articulated. And what I wrote down as some themes, things that I heard more than once, is that this space is unique for several people as compared to other meetings, that it helps reduce silos, it gives a context for difficult conversations, or can, and there's a level of engagement. So I want to echo both Lisa's. This may either encourage you about your work or discourage you about the work happening around the country. But Aaron and I both support a couple of dozen communities across geographies. And the level of engagement and the relationship-based approach has stood out with y'all, significantly to the point where we've connected, Laura, with others who are struggling in that way. So that's just a little bit of context reflected back. The rest of the meeting, we've got about 50 minutes, and we're going to see as much as we can downloading these 5 areas together, which is why does it need to continue? So what's the value that is here that you guys want to hold on to when the funding discontinues in August? And one piece of context, some of the sort of pre-meetings we've had with folks, folks have maybe wondered, like, if we're coming with suitcases full of cash. The Rural Community Opioid Response Program has a bunch of different grants. There's a psychostimulant grant, a neonatal abstinence syndrome grant, and they come up cyclically, right? And so when those opportunities come up, you guys can apply for them. And there's also other funding sources through SAMHSA, through CDC, through the state, through opioid restitution funds. And so this is about looking at part of the value might be keeping a table at which funding is pursued in a coordinated way. And it might mean that the level of intensity or frequency or staffing goes down until that funding exists. It may mean that y'all come to a consensus that we really need to do this and find funding to maintain this space in order to grow in those ways. So that's not for me to decide, that's for y'all to decide. But why does it need to continue? What level of intensity? Where does it live? Who is staffing it, and who, other than who is already here, should be at this table, right? And then we're going to go to next steps. So we're going to see how much of that we can do in the next 45 plus minutes. Aaron, you still okay? So the first is why. So this will come from some of y'all's answers. Why does this need to be maintained? The answer can be that it doesn't, right? So if that's the perspective that folks have, that is okay. That helps our conversation today in terms of the clarity of it. But why does this space need to be continued? What's the value that you guys want to hold on to? They're all over there.
Inertia.
The value is inertia.
That's a value. It's much harder to start this than it is to continue. So if we let it lapse, then it will be more challenging to get good.
Yeah.
Was it the second law of thermodynamics?
Second law is entropy naturally increases in the universe.
No, it's one of them.
But that also fits.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just like to see. One thing is, you know, that it is, in my experience, I think that the challenges we're facing with mental health, behavioral health, substance abuse it's not like getting better. And it's just gonna get worse, I hate to say. So, and I guess I feel like, and I don't even know how many years we've been doing this now, but I feel like we're really starting to move forward and understand. Excuse me. And, so I think it sure serves value, and that we didn't have this kind of things. I don't know what will happen. So.
Crossword in a really sort of changing and challenging environment.
I would say as a lot of value, we don't have the redundancy that we would have otherwise. The field team having the operational work group has been a tremendous support to what I do at OLCAP. So I would say it helps us both financially and in every other way not to have redundancy.
Yeah. Who else, including online, we'll get you to use the hand raise function if you have something you want to contribute. No, I can't read that there's anything there.
Oh, all right.
Here's the black one. I know Lori is also capturing, but we didn't want to monopolize the screen with that. So we've heard that it's already built. We don't have to build something again. We've heard that there's this opportunity for cross-learning that's grown, particularly in this challenging environment. We've heard specific coordination around the work that OLCAP does and the real team. Other values of this space that people want to hold on to. Dr. Carlon.
Yeah, I think collaboration saves time and money, and ultimately, I think we think lives. But in addition to that, I think the people in this room benefit in that we're able to share the work by building teams. We're able to share and build a community around the compassion fatigue that I think is when dealing with people that are not always operating in the exact same manner that we think they should, or is just different than the way we operate, or the same as we operate, but they're under systemic stress that's causing them to behave differently. And so I think it helps build a sort of a network to support each other.
Thanks, Dr. Carlin. Anyone else want to add anything to that?
I think there's sort of cultural value in the landscape of behavioral health for us, for the people here in this scenario, to have a place to brainstorm together. And while I don't want there to be redundancy in meetings that people don't want to go to, I think that it's really valuable that a consortium in its essence, by definition, is a place to share ideas. This particular consortium is already motivated and mobilized to take action. So you're already, far down the pathway to success. And we're having success all the time, but I think it's really valuable to have something that's built that we've poured trust into, and even if there's hiccups along the way, that you will keep coming back, and that a forum in which you feel compelled to thinking outside your own silo is being vulnerable and sharing what you're struggling with, and or what you need to grow and improve, and or how can you build it better. And that kind of conversation is difficult to strike among professionals and leadership, because we're all busy, right? And we want these gatherings to be really rich in content. But there's a lot to be said for the ability to brainstorm together and do that with some facilitation that has some goal markings and targets, guidelines or road signs, and then also there's some products. I think that's what we're maintaining in our cultural landscape of how we work together as a profession.
Thanks, Emily. Anyone else? We're going to move on to what it should look like. What's the level of intensity? For context, there was a 1-year planning grant, which was succeeded by a 3-year implementation grant. And that implementation grant comes to a close at the end of August. And so you guys also had a chance to experience between when Lori was at public health to when Lori was external, sort of what happens or doesn't happen in the space when it isn't staffed. And so y'all will have some idea of what do we want it to look like? So could it look exactly the same? Should it be same frequency, same level of preparation, and sort of relational connections in between? Should it be quarterly until funding is identified? Should it be less intensity? What should it look like going forward?
I would advocate for, it was spoken to earlier about the value of in-person meetings and networking that can happen there that just frankly can't happen online. So I would advocate for less frequently in person, maybe quarterly, but yeah, that's what I got.
Great. Other perspectives?
Yeah, I like it just like it is now. I'm asking myself this because I don't like it. But I do like it like it is now. I also think Lori, at least for me, has been a strong initiator and pulling us all together, keeping us on track. I think, forget who said it, I was talking about the meetings. Well, I think it was Lisa that there's no time lost during the meeting, and it's well thought out. So I like it is. And as far as Lori, it didn't matter to me. It didn't seem different whether she was working for the health department or by herself. She still makes you feel like you better come. You're gonna be in trouble. You're gonna come in that film, yeah.
Maybe a happy medium would be monthly or monthly online meetings and quarterly in-person meetings. I really like the monthly check-ins to like share things that are coming up within our various places that we work, and also just like check in with each other and build that relationship. This is my first time being in a physical plane with a lot of people, so I'm also really liking seeing your faces outside of the screen. I had heard public health say that they don't have the capacity to hold that grant again, and I think that it might make sense for a behavioral health agency to hold the grant as it's a behavioral health project.
Great. We're gonna head to where?
Oh, sorry.
I'm not skipping that, Anya reminded me that, we often talk about things that are actually happening, meeting once a month, so we all feel the same. So I find that very nice.
Yeah, he's a current. Other perspectives on what this should look like after August?
I think our operational budget of this can be more transparent and should be, so we all know what we're kind of signing up for. Sometimes, we come to the table and great conversations, great work happens, but the budgeting should be more transparent and everyone should buy it.
That's great. Well, the budgeting after August for this grant will be really easy. To that end, something that came up also in the check-in about what could be going better. We heard sort of data, benchmarks, those things. Twice a year, y'all owe data to us that is about the work plan. So it says, here was the plan, here's what happened, here's what didn't, here's why. And then there's a sort of more at a glance, which is in federal government speak, it's called the RFI, request for information. So people say, here's some successes, here's some challenges, here's the substances of concern, here's where we are compared to what we intended. So all of that is due in tomorrow. Yeah, it's on March 30th. So your next meeting can be a specific answer to some of the clarity that people asked about, because that exists, every 6 months, and it'll be fresh off the press. Other perspectives on what this should look like going forward?
I'd like to continue the functionality of the group, but I would suggest that a realignment or readjustment, and maybe merging with some other groups that are almost identical or identical in mission and scope. For example, right now is a really good example where there's another commissioner on another meeting, the mental health and response team, and I had to ditch to come here. And I see a lot of the same people, most of the same people on those meetings, the behavioral health, BHC is another group. And I think I think when we talk about resilience and redundancy, that's really important for the field work and having multiple layers where we have the real team, we have the navigators, the repairs teams, kind of those are all overlapping, but also they have different focuses, but at the top, when we're talking about a committee, interagency committee like this or commission, I think we should try to make that a single point, like a hub to guide things strategically.
Yeah. So what are other spaces that are similar that can be put together, can be aggregated? Great.
I think I counted 7 meetings in March on my calendar related to this topic.
Any top few in that seem like the best candidates for merge?
No, I actually think it should, it might be worthy of, maybe a survey of all those different groups together, and maybe there's something new that is birthed out of that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And we're having this conversation in March, there's about 6 months left in the grant, and a lot of the home stretch is focused on sustainability. So these are conversations to be fleshed out. We want to make sure that there is broad alignment on, are we, like, is there a value in continuing? What does it look like? Where is it housed, et cetera? Any last things people want to say about what it should look like? So we've heard stuff about frequency, stuff about duplication. What about any comments on either of those or on staffing or supporting of that staffing?
Yes, I would like to see what exactly all of our roles are, because in the beginning of the BHC, we were setting out to do like a crisis stabilization center that never happened. And that was our beginning goal. So what is our goal moving forward after August? Besides just collaborating, because a lot of us do collaborate on other meetings. So what does that look like? What are our roles specifically within the BHC? And then, you know, what are we doing each time? Because right now we have an agenda because we have the grant, we have obligations to meet. We have things that we're doing with that grant, but what are we gonna be doing moving forward?
Go for it, Dr. Carl.
Yeah, I like monthly because I think that holds me accountable to get stuff done. I also think staffing wise, there needs to be pretty dedicated staff. I think that's been key to this. And I think, you know, should that be a program manager? Probably should that be someone expert in data for some of that FTE? Probably. I do hear that there are lots of different meetings. I thankfully don't go to many of them. I cause one of them quarterly. And what I noticed in that quarterly, which is a pre-hospital behavioral health summit, we have solved some very specific challenges, but when we meet quarterly, it's a little bit long between meetings that we sort of forget to do things. And so I think the current frequency is good.
So when I think of the other meetings that are out there, it's like apples and oranges sometimes. Because the BHAC has a specific role to distribute 1/10 money. All right, it's not about creating more projects, it's funding projects that people bring to them. All right, this is a meeting that creates projects and creates things to act on. The MHFR, I'm not so, to be honest with you, I'm not so sure what it was designed for. It's basically touch base and share what's going on in the community. And since that time, there's been another meeting, is the one that Tanya Barnett runs, that's a quarterly, I believe, a human service meeting, which is similar to the MHFR, everybody talking about what they're doing. So if you try to layer those in one meeting, you'll never get anything done. That's too much in one meeting. And so the BHC had a very specific purpose. And I think that has to be kept in the month. I agree with Monk. And you know, then the BHAC has a specific purpose. It really is to really give out 1/10 money and monitor. So they're really two distinct groups in a way, but BHAC could definitely sit at the table so they can understand what we're funding or building for, so they're not duplicating or maybe, you know, using same dollars, to fund same projects. And make sure there's some distinction between those things, where we're not overlapping too many. But I would really caution that trying to put all those in one meeting, you might lose focus of what this meeting, this group is going to do, so. Right.
So if you talk about staffing, federal funding and this many sub-grantees without a designated staff, and we're out of how that would ever work. I don't know, I know my agency doesn't have the capacity to do that. So I think if you're going to be looking for federal funding to continue the programs we're having, it's got to live somewhere, and you have to have a dedicated staff person.
What about Brian?
Yeah, Eli, I totally agree. I mean, it's an epic thing to take on and it's valuable. and you have to have bandwidth to do it, and to do it properly, you have to have serious dedication, right? And many of our agencies are really attached as far as. I think what I wanted to go back to is, thank you, Jim, for again, kind of pointing out. Sometimes the distillation of all these meetings that are about the topic of behavioral health do feel iterative. But as a reminder, just an add on to what Jim was saying, thanks for adding that clarity, is that each one has its own history of where it came onto the landscape. The mental health field response team has its own paradigm that preceded a lot of these other meetings, and it's continued on because there's an obligation we have to fulfill and have that meeting. You know, the BHAC has its specific role and its real lane that it's in. While it is covering the topics of behavioral health in many ways, it's got a provision of a tax really to stay on top of, and it's a lot of work as well. I do think could be some more synergy of the BHAC within some of these other paradigms, but I'm really trying to get at the sort of the consternation that I know is real for many of you of too many meetings that feel duplicative. The topic is huge. Behavioral health there's so many features of it. I appreciate the comment to maybe distill them better or maybe collapse them. But I also agree with Jim that can be hard. When you use grant money to activate work, it's mind-boggling how much variation and attunement each grant, each gathering begets. And so that's where you can start to see that things feel a bit similar, yet they're operated slightly differently because they're adhering to particular rules and guidelines of that funding source. And you know that may be also the reality of the BHC as it morphs into the next stage and has a different funding source. It too may have to have a lane that it's in that's slightly different than what we're all used to. But I think we're here to be receptive and collaborative and really brainstorm what's next, and it will have its formations that it has to adhere to too, based on the funding.
So we're gonna keep moving unless someone has something pressing. So there is differing opinions that all connect on a value in continuing. So quarterly and monthly to hybrid in person, the staff to collapse or amalgamated into other meetings. There's some stuff for y'all to figure out, but it seems like there's good alignment on like the need to go forward, and that connects with the value you guys identify. So the big question, and it was said in the check-in, this is a place where like more challenging conversations can occur, is if it's going to continue, where does it get housed? So public health had shared, again, a support and a belief that it should continue, but a lack of capacity or a view that like that they didn't seem like the home for it, correct? And so the question is, where should this live? Where?
So where should this meeting live, or where should this grant that we don't have live? What's your question?
Well, I'm not asking where a grant you don't have should live.
Just talking about the meeting.
Yeah, this meeting can turn into funding, if you guys pursue it together in alignment with what you want to do. But yeah, the question is, the BHC continue, and mostly got yeses. And so then the question is, where's the place? It's current home saying that we support you, but you're kicking you out of the house.
And it just lives before it has business.
You have an extra bedroom?
It's never the
Yeah, I just throw my ideas out there, and I'm sorry. I like the idea of being with public health, and just in my mind, and I'm probably selfish thinking this way, but I feel like it was always law enforcement and like EMS, and I know that's not true, dealing with the population of people that we deal with. And one thing and it gets back to the importance of the meetings to me is what it really took it out of just us dealing with it to all of us dealing with these things. And I feel like, to me anyway, public health is kind of this neutral area. I like the idea that it's a county government agency with the maybe naive mindset that maybe the commissioners feel a little more buy-in if money needs to be covered or something. So, yeah, I guess that's my 10. And I totally get what you're saying, you know, and I don't know if I understand that right, but you know, having my undersheriff run the navigator grant, really takes up a lot of time. And, so, anyway, that's my thoughts.
Curious, it can't be housed in public health, if it could be housed in any other county department. And also curious about behavioral health agencies, like I can't speak for Missouri behavioral health, but just curious about it.
And then, just to butt in, that would be one of my thoughts, but then again, they're a nonprofit standalone.
So the public defender's office would be glad to have these. Or I'm kidding.
No, I think we're done, right?
Well, that's so, that is his response to you, Joe, is that everybody here has been dealing with what I've been dealing with, and what Chief Black's been dealing with, and what you've been dealing with as, you know, the fellow and or person in charge of those that deal with clients in the middle of the night, coming apart the schemes. And that's what's so beautiful about this, is that we're all here kind of, you know, dealing with a similar issue, and we've been in our silos so long that we you know, don't even know that these other folks are out there. So yeah, I don't know where it's housed, but I think having a point person like Lori get us all here and get us all talking is key, whether that's, you know, a private nonprofit or consultant based setup. Yeah, we don't really have that policy.
Are we, I have one question, would we have to then pay for, I guess, Lori's services, is that way public health doesn't have it anymore? Is that?
It's not called that way. Let me try to help with some nuances. So as the sort of fiscal oversight for this particular grant, which has a lifespan, right? So the lifespan terminates in late August. The idea, as Lori built it, and as was the sort of wish of public health as we entered more into behavioral health paradigm. So we do have services that have long been existing that engage in behavioral health issues for sure. But public health as a department hasn't really had, up until the last few years, a behavioral health component that's really been explored and fleshed out, and large grants have been sought. So that was what we were able to achieve, and Lori did that masterfully. She still does it masterfully. The paradigm has changed a little as she's not with public health anymore. And she is contracted to enact the rest of the BHC. I think it's really valuable for you all to know that public health really got something enormous out of being at this table. And all along, there's been some thinking and wondering about what would happen next and potential grants we might go for. And also the notion that writ large, the philosophy of the grant, and Andrew, please correct me since you are the heart of knowing this is what's here, that it is a think tank and an engine that was built, very finessed engine, in order to see, after the grant was over, where the concept that we were building could land. I don't believe that it was ever intended that it would always be public health enacting the next stage of this. This is an experiment, really, to see what could become of this particular grant that really funded deeply the ability to convene, and then the ability to allocate funding from within the grant out to participants, members who are doing this. I think when I say that public health may not have the bandwidth to propagate it further in its current sort of iteration, it's not a lack of interest or concern, or even the, we would love to continue on as members and participants in it, but I think our Where we hold it now is for it to be birthed into the community differently. And we have been fiscal agents of it, we will no longer be, and we don't have a next grant to go to at this point. So we're really trying to bolster and motivate the partners here to think about where it could live and function sustainably within our community. That could be in any one of your organizations, if you could imagine that. It could be even with an organization that doesn't always regularly attend this meeting, but should be. And I don't have the answer. I mean, my instinct is to have it housed in an agency that does behavioral health services fully. And that's actually not public health this time. Although we have garnered a really incredible enhancement in public health by being at this table, which is to evolve our harm reduction services beyond what it's been for years. It's now a much greater public facing portion of what we do, and the word is getting out, and we're doing stigma reduction, we're doing non-stigma distribution, and we're providing safe services for people. And to me, that is a gift that we need from being with these conversations, is that we have fine-tuned and found sustainable funding to make our harm reduction unit within our larger health department really be strong, be bigger and more robust. Anya's really, she's coming on board to really realize that in many ways, and we've gotten a huge amount of it.
And that will continue.
And that will continue. We've got.
I didn't understand that.
Yeah.
Lori and Viola.
I just want to expose my ignorance. Cannot the grant be written to incorporate into the administrative costs of it? Or is it strictly service based?
So you guys have an R4 grant. It's a 3-year implementation grant. It concludes in August. There was not a funding opportunity that picked up that funding in September. So there are a bunch of funding opportunities through R4. You can check grants.gov under person. There's other funding opportunities through SAMHSA and CDC generally flow through the states, although there's some opportunities to apply directly. So the question for y'all is, if there's a value for this and we want to continue it, how are we going to do that after August when the current funding expires? Are we going to pursue other funding for it? Are we going to do this in a scaled back way in the interim with funding that we've identified as a community that's come together where the resources are that we already have? So that's the question.
But I see it too. Oh, sorry.
All right, Dr. Carl, hand up too. So I just
Okay.
want to
Let's do Dr. Carlum and then Jim. There was one other person, so Beulah, Dr. Carlum, and Jim.
Well, it makes sense to me, just so we're not duplicating services, but to live in discovery behavioral health. He's the expert, that's what they do. And then us all partner with them when the appropriate grants come to fill. And we use it, keeps us working together. And we work together a lot, so it works really well. And then we stay in this sort of type of community where we can talk about when we feel like we're in silos, we can all remind each other or not. Because like Joe, we often feel like that 24-hour crisis line. So, it's like, oh, mental health, no, call somebody else. Because you're not good alone, but it's and this stuff. So I would say we look at our experts here in our community, discover behavioral health.
So if it's a hot potato, the sheriff trying to throw back, push away, the fuel is now thrown at the gym, we'll see what he does with it in a second. Dr. Carlbaum. You're on mute.
There's no perfect place, of course. And this, I think, depends on the group's comfort with uncertainty and how much the group trusts each other. So I can certainly see, I think public health feels like the right fit, but I understand that they don't feel they have the bandwidth to do that right now. I think discovery behavioral health makes perfect sense, but I could see where maybe other folks in the team may not be as comfortable. Maybe they're, not as objective. They're competing sometimes for other grants. Perhaps a step up from our community and the Salish Behavioral Health ASO maybe could be a role, or the county. I think going to a county agency, a subsidiary of the county council, if you will, may apply more restrictions than freedoms for us to have vulnerable and difficult conversations. So I think the group needs to decide which flavor fits. I think there are lots of easy choices, lots of places where it'll succeed, as long as there is an independent staff to run the meeting and keep us all honest.
That's a good way to segue. In a minute, we're gonna go Jim, Commissioner Brotherton, and we're gonna move on to the food.
So we'll just talk about housing and discovery of healthcare. I see it's more as maybe the fiduciary responsibility of public health plans. As kind of more overseeing the financing, paying Lori, but she hears cats the best. Keeping her on board, but we basically have a pass-through agency because we were not for profit, we can qualify for grants. We have the finance director, CFO that can help do some of that stuff. We probably have to add a little. He's probably, he heard me right now in spring, but we are a $6 million agency, so we have lots of dollars. And so the bottom line is that I see it as a pass-through more than that. I have no control over. Lori is independent. She runs the, and that's the way I would envision it. Because yes, you're right. I didn't want to be somebody that's going to be trying to make those kind of decisions.
So an openness from DBH to act as the infrastructure with Lori as the staffing. We'll get into the who and sort of what's needed for that to be the case. But as a pass-through arm's length rather than holding it because of some of the concerns that Dr. Carlbaum articulated, if there's concerns about competition. And then in that setup, it would also have you all have a chance to test this space as the place for tough conversations that you described it was.
Well, I was going to suggest an independent organization, like we could convene our own nonprofit, but DBH, I had some concerns as possible, if we get grants down the line as a possible competitor, but I love the fiscal pass-through idea that Jim, and I think that if DBH is willing to do that, we should really court that. I'm gonna have to leave in a few minutes, so can I jump onto the dollars and cents just a little bit? I've already publicly said, I know public health is not crazy about it, but I do think some of the opioid settlement funds should partially fund this, and I hope that we can consider also at least talking about, is there dues, if everyone has a little bit of skin in the game, we're all more motivated, but I think that there's probably, the county is bad, if it's not a public health, the county is probably not a great home for it. We don't have a lot of other staff capacity, and they just would have no subject matter expertise, though we are building grant administration capacity, so in a future time can potentially assist with that. So then other than that, I really think this would be a great home for some of the dollars that are coming from the opioid settlements to the county. And then a lot of it should go in, I don't think this is the best organization for distributing opioid settlement dollars, but to keep this table set, I think it would be really appropriate with some auxiliary funding.
So building on the inertia you described earlier, it's already built potential county funds through opioid restitution to maintain it, but not the infrastructure to house those funds, but a comfort with DBH as fiscal pass-through versus home that would be competitive.
And I'll even put a number. I think that we can come up with 35K with small escalation. Per year.
Over 1 year.
Yes.
Well, so in terms of funding, is it possible that funding would come from the BHC?
No.
I know the court likes to think it's all theirs. I like to just give most of that away.
I don't want to take money from programs. I mean, that's directly taking it from programs, but I think.
And just to say, like, we got a little bit more than 10 minutes. We are going to move to the who, but the big question was, we don't know whether this is valuable, what it should look like when it keeps, if it keeps going, where it should be housed and who should staff it. And I'm hearing a fair amount of alignment that there's value, it should continue, that there's a place potentially to house it that would hopefully be arm's length. There's someone who is here ready to write a check to at least keep the table warm, right? So you guys can look at what would this do for us, this modest amount of funding that would then allow us to potentially pursue other things. In the last 6 months of this grant, again, it's supposed to be focused on sustainability. So you could look at like what would demonstrate the value of this continued team to be able to pursue this funding. So last thing that we're gonna go to before next steps, which is somewhat clarified, is the who. And so the who is both, is there anybody not at this table who should be? Is there anybody at this table who is gonna pull their hair out if they have to keep coming? Versus the other meetings they have. Anybody wanting to step back from this space? Anybody identified in the community who needs to be here?
I think we should have some school. Children? Yeah.
Experience.
I guess it depends what grants we would be going after moving forward. They're like, neonatal, withdrawal symptoms, maybe we got the nurse practitioners here. Things, I don't know, it just really depends what's going, what we're doing.
But independent reassessment based on subject matter or relevance.
What's the prosecutor?
Great.
I didn't want to say that.
Well, you Chair. All right, anyone else who is not at the table who should be or should be considered? Okay. Well, we've talked about this being a space for difficult conversations, sometimes awkward conversations. So the who of staff. We had folks, some folks talk about this during check-in and what's valuable of like how should this be supported staffing wise going forward?
I guess I don't understand.
So right now you have someone staffing this at a certain capacity and a certain cost. And you guys are gonna figure out together sort of what this looks like going forward, what level of intensity. And so is that cost and staffing appropriate? Is it someone who is more junior and cheaper? Is it something different? What do you guys see as sort of vital to who is supporting this going forward? Not from a fiscal or infrastructure perspective, from a staffing perspective. We heard several voices say this has to be staffed if it's going to continue.
Well, I'm coming in making the grant funding, which is in the middle of all that. It has to be staffed by somebody who understands the multitude of grants, who's really got a good relationship with everybody, who understands data, and you have to be able to do data. So I don't think younger, cheaper is a great way, but I say experienced. And we all love Lori, of course, but if not Lori, someone just like.
Depending on the funds are going to come through, then obviously it's just another item that we can't have just one person doing federal funding because there's lots of different federal funds. And so making sure we have the right persons which of us want to be appropriated appropriately, and of course we want to cap it to stay on board. So
Yeah, I don't know if this is time for Lori to talk, but she's the person staffing it now. I'm curious if like there needs to be more support for Lori, but I think we need Lori or Lori comes.
Lori, your preference to be in the background has come to its end. I'm just asking you to speak on your question.
So my perspective is, yes, we definitely need somebody who's good at data, and we've had that so far with HFPB, and that may evolve, depending on what we decide as a group that you guys want to focus on data wise. It could be that a player that comes into public health, as that capacity gets developed is a piece of that. I don't know how that would work, but that's some of the thoughts. As Jim is saying, you're definitely going to need somebody who can handle the financial administration of this, because it is no small thing to not just do what needs to be done during the grant, but you're responsible to be able to be audited and pass that audit for some period of time after the grant. And whatever grant we have, I think that is going to stay the same. It's just no small amount of administering a grant. And then the piece that I do, I think you see me at the meetings, and you probably don't see the 100 meetings that happen before the meeting. And there's a lot of stepping back and sort of thinking through what is our, what is our strategy? What are the new things that we didn't know were a problem last month that are this month, that now we need to sort of switch what we said last month. So there's somebody who's kind of really hanging on to that. And if it's not me, you want somebody who has that sort of broad perspective, across all of you. And because it is all of you, that relational component is major, because it does come out of trust. And what was the rest of the question?
What's the? I definitely appreciate that. Your job, what you give to us for this consortium is built upon the foundation of lots of different other meetings. But give me a sense of how much time do you work for us? I mean, is it 35% of your time? Is it 0.5 FT?
Kind of big comment, sorry.
Yeah.
So for.
And I have noticed that whoever really works for them.
Yeah.
That could be a pinpoint.
And I was going to encourage you to answer the on paper question and the reality question.
So yes, if you say that you're going to cover this for 0.25, that might get you a meeting without much preparation and maybe a tiny bit of the reporting that's required for a grant. Doesn't include going after a grant, that doesn't include as leadership changes out of one organization and new leadership comes in, you're trying to give them familiarity with what's going on at this table and adjust priorities if they need to be. I would say the amount of time that I spend on this is easily 75% of the time that I would have if I were working a 40-hour job, easily. And then a month like this month, it's probably more than a full-time gig. And I'm not cheap, and I should say that just very clearly, and I'm not interested in working for cheap going forward either. And as much as I love all of you guys, the level of experience that I brought to the table outside of public health, but as somebody who runs between a vast realm of interests and sectors, has been why I am good at this. And I think it served you well. So I think it might have been money well spent.
All right, we're gonna move to next steps. And so, again, a big ask with some more clarity on some of the data and the funding. Biannual reporting is happening sort of now. So next month, I'm going to suggest that that be part of the conversation. So anybody who feels that there isn't a handle on the work plan, on the budget, on the bird's eye of this, that will be a renewal of that. And then I'm going to suggest that you take some of the alignment here and you vote. So like there wasn't time to talk about it to set the table and vote. But there needs to be clarity on, so I think there's consensus that it should continue and that it has value. So looking at frequency and what we want it to look like, looking at where it's housed, and looking at the staff, right? And so those are things that I'm going to encourage you all to be considering and talking to each other in between now and then. Other next steps that I'm missing for the short term.
I think I'm wondering, question, if it was, well, I guess, Lori, are you still on the board of DBH, and is there some clause that says DBH? Okay. Well, then you have to step on the board, because I feel like you are the most important piece rather than having it. So, that was my question.
Other questions of clarity?
The board consider a voluntary position? The board consider a voluntary position?
If you gave me free housing, a retirement, and lots of food.
And a few trips to the home.
I do have some housing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we've got an alternative sustainability plan. I do really appreciate everyone's engagement and everyone's time. I do want to open it up we had people sort of reflect back on their experience in this, what was valuable about it, what they want to see in the future. So I'm going to open it for 2 or 3 people to have the last word here to reflect some of that back to y'all as you go forward. So what is important, having had this conversation, having come to some level of clarity, it needs to nail that down and vote. What are you excited about the value this might have going forward? What do you guys think you're going to really need to keep your eye on as a group to be successful? A couple people want to have the last word.
I guess I can't be quiet. I guess one thing, I don't know if this is exactly what you're asking, but I think one thing that I'm kind of excited about is that it's almost like it's getting a rebirth in a way with all the stuff that we've already gained. And so I'm excited for that, even if it isn't.
I'm gonna put the chief on the spot and let me and see, is there anything that you think will be really valuable going forward that you'll need to, as a group, keep in mind for to be successful?
It's good as much. It's listening to comments. But going forward, I mean, for me, it's a good place to learn. It will, hopefully continue to do that. I came into this about, I guess, towards the middle of this, being a group and never really got a grasp on the mission. I was hoping to learn that through it. So if we do continue, I think that it would be important for me to get a more deeper understanding of my role within this group. So I think moving forward, identifying the players, why we're here, and how we can that's
That's very helpful. Clarity on mission and I think the muzzle. One last person I'm going to see Brian and then Aaron to see if you want to say anything, and Lori, and I'll give us the last word.
Real quick, just to remind us that this benefits the people that we serve in the community. It makes our community healthier, happier, more thriving place, and save lives.
Aaron,
I don't know, not really, but nothing other than thank you for hosting us over the last couple days. It's been really helpful for us to see the landscape and the geography of where you guys work. And just to hear the perspectives of all the different people at the table here. And we just really appreciate you all. We know it's hard work to do, especially in rural areas. And Lori has my contact info. If you ever want to get a hold of me, I'm a resource to you going forward. And yeah, just thanks again for your candor and having us here.
And I'll defer to Lori in terms of the best way to communicate sort of alternatives to anything we brought up today. So if you guys are like, oh, I wish I thought of this or said this as a way forward, then don't want to contain things to what was said today, but do want to encourage you guys to both get some clarity on where you are through the reporting, but doing some voting on how you want to proceed. So you have some runway still before the funding is out to have everything in place.
Well, first off, I want to thank you all for coming to this table. I know that this has been a busy month for all of you who were responsive to all of the data that I needed, even though I was asking 2 meetings of you this month. I want to say such a deep thank you because we were able to get that uploaded.
We're coming really hard. It's coming in April, and we can make work with another grantee. So thanks for doing that.
Even sooner than so. So it is in, and it's in every respect due to all of the work of you guys. I want to say that I miss the hospital at this table, and if as other stakeholders in sitting at this table, you could pass the word back that we really miss them because they are important. They're important in terms of our data and understanding. They're important to the EMS and the law enforcement, because that's sort of the cycle that we're trying to figure out how to relieve to some degree. Thank you so much. You have let me start out at the beginning of this job 4 years ago. I really knew nothing. And now I feel like I know this community in such a deep, soulful way. And really, my question to you as we go out into this, you know, time of rebirth, whatever it's going to be, whatever it's going to look like. It's, you know, it's going to sound very emotional, but in the way that I would say to anybody that I was in a new or renewing relationship, how do you want to be loved? How can I love you? How can I make the way that we work together work for you as well as the table? So there's all of these individual relationships that I have with all of you. There's the relationships that you have with each other. And I want to honor and respect that as we go forward. And I really thank you for allowing me this huge landscape on which to discover a talent in an area that I would never have dreamed that I would work in. And all of you touched that one area, and it's an area I knew nothing about, you know, 4 or 5 years ago. So thank you for giving me a chance to sort of live into a life purpose that I didn't even know existed, from my heart. Okay, that's all I got.
Thanks, everyone.
I should say also, thank you to Andrew and Erin. It's not something that I could have ever facilitated. You guys did like masters. Thank you so much.